Call this meeting to order. City Council meeting. It is Monday, July 27th, 2020 at 6 p.m. The agenda's been posted. The media has been notified. Val, please call roll. Can you hear me?
Barnett,
Here.
Larson,
Here.
Mikulowski,
Here.
Kelly,
Here.
Anderson,
Here.
Holt,
Here.
Daniel,
Here.
Rossing,
Here.
Mayor Frederickson.
Here. We have quorum. Please stand. Has anybody received any public comments?
I
Gerald?
have.
Yeah, I have one from
We're going to ask you to pull the mic a little closer.
Carl and Carla Nyland on Spring Lake Road. We purchased this property on Spring Lake Road in 2010. The purpose of selecting this particular area was location, location, location. It's like living in the country while being close to the city. Backyard is a park-like setting. We have a large variety of wildlife. There's a proposal to change the zoning in our area to allow for building of a 50-unit storage facility. To allow the building of a 50-unit self-storage facility from Timber Drive to the back of our property on Spring Lake Road would disrupt the peaceful and tranquil area. It would also affect the surrounding environment by displacing wildlife, and in this case, by backfilling wetlands to enable the units to be built. According to a prominent real estate broker, a B3 property in a residential area would have negative effects on the property value of properties in the area. This change would set a precedent for others to put up businesses in residential areas, turning R1 areas into B3s. We pay our taxes for the property the way it is, which doesn't include a storage unit in our backyard. Should look to build this unit in a district that's already zoned for businesses.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, moving on. You did? No? Okay. Mayor's comments, the Rhinelander High School graduation parade. Actually, I'm going to ask Lloyd to get up and speak about this really quick.
Last week I met with the principal of the Rhinelander High School and also Captain Tyler Young from the Sheriff's Department, and we planned a route that would complement the proceedings that are going to take place Friday night for graduation. They're going to, the students, there's 185 graduating seniors this year. Those who want to participate, the original plan was, what if we had inclement weather? What was going to be, the outdoor graduation ceremony would take place on the Mike Webster Stadium. And if inclement weather, you couldn't be outside. So they wanted a possible parade or something to drive by the high school where the school board could hand out the diplomas. As we talked about it and trying to make this a special celebration because of the COVID and the things that the seniors had to endure their last semester of their senior year, we came up with the idea of having a parade along with the graduation ceremony if the weather permits for them to be outdoors, because there's limited seating for those who can come. This way, with a parade route by the high school, other family members could be involved. They could be parked on the side of the road. They could social distance with lawn chairs in the soccer fields, and they could clap and cheer, have banners for their relative that drives by in the parade. The parade would be for the seniors only. They would stage at the ice arena. Some of them were hockey players, so we included that building as part of their starting point. The Sheriff's Department would take care of traffic control at the intersection of Timber and 17. They would come down Timber Drive, and then they would turn right on Coolidge Avenue. They would go up in front of the school. If the weather's nice, They're going to drive around the front of the school, park in the back of the school, and at that point, they will get in line and then walk to the graduation ceremony at Mike Webster Field. If the weather is unpleasant and rainy, they're going to come out onto Coolidge Avenue. When they get to the top of the hill, they're going to form two lines. And in the middle of the two lines with traffic cones, the school board will be handing out on both sides diplomas to make the process a little quicker and smoother. So that is something that the department heads, Dan from the Public Works and Terry from the Fire Department and I are approving that permit, or that possibility for them to have the parade, to make it something a little extra. A lot of other municipalities in the state and around the country have done special things to accommodate this year's graduation. So that's something that we're going to do here locally for the Hodags as they graduate this year.
Thank you. Reports, boards, commissions, and committees. Carrie, I'll ask you if you want to report anything from the Planning Commission.
Nothing further than what was already discussed last meeting.
Okay.
There was a conditional use permit. That's
Good
pretty
enough.
much it, yeah.
I'll just give you that opportunity at this point. I will. Okay. In the meeting minutes from that meeting have not been prepared yet, so they'll be in the next one also.
Okay.
So moving forward, meeting minutes, consider the approval of meeting minutes from July 13th, 2020 council meeting.
I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the July 13th, 2020 City Council meeting.
I'll second. And then,
There's a motion and a second. Further discussion. Gerald?
on the, what's numbered as page 6, motion to consider Hodag Beach lifeguard contract. I would assume what we thought we were doing was approving a contract, not just considering it. So I'd like to move to change that, consider to approve. And then the next item, I don't know what to do with the consider. We kind of, I guess we indicated our approval on that one also. So I would move both of those change to approve.
Yeah, you remember at the last meeting, I picked that up, Gerald, and I said the minutes should reflect that we are approving these things, we're not considering the approval. So we'll let the record show that that was said a couple times, but then we corrected it, so they were approved. You are correct.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Ordinances. In your packets also the first reading of ordinance 2020-09, disposal of abandoned, unclaimed property and city assets. Gerald?
I have a point of parliamentary inquiry, I think it is. First, would someone explain the meaning of the first reading, second reading stuff, and what we're entitled to do at each of the readings? Can we reject it? Can we amend it? Can we refer it somewhere?
Okay. The concept of the first reading of an ordinance, it's kind of an arcane theory, but it survives. The concept is that the first reading is when it's supposedly introduced to you. You've never heard about it before. You have no knowledge about it. And so rather than you voting on it right then and there, you're supposed to take the time from the first reading until the public hearing, because an ordinance has to have a public hearing, which is at the next meeting, and then you would be going on to voting on that. Does that make sense to you?
Okay, so long as,
So you don't do anything with the first time except, can you clarify this to me? What does this mean? Or you just use that opportunity between meeting A and meeting B to go talk to the parties that are responsible for it, and then they can explain it so that at the public hearing, everybody on the council should know what it's all about, and then you get to vote on it. And then you can amend it, and then you can change it. But you'd only amend and change it at the next meeting. Because it wouldn't be fair to the public to have it first read and then have it amended and changed before the second meeting, because then it's a whole different, it could be a whole different topic.
Gerald?
Well, I just have several things I want to say about that. Is on this particular one, I don't know who wrote it, and I don't mean any disrespect or insult, but it's very poorly written. And as evidence of my good faith, I'd be willing to get with the person and help rewrite it so that it would make sense to put it in our permanent ordinances. Secondly, I think this is a prime example of why we need committees to vet things before they come to council. This one would require amendments almost every other line if we were to go through it in this kind of a session, which I don't think is a very useful part of our time. And just on this and other things we've had, I think we need better explanations when things are brought before us, like why do this? Why now? What's the past practice? What problem are we trying to solve? Who benefits? Who might feel harmed by it? What statutory guidance is there? I mean, all that stuff seems like committee work, but if we're going to be the committee, then we need that brought in with the ordinance or proposed resolution at the same time.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
First of all, I'm very proud to say I didn't write this one. But the bottom line is, the whole purpose of the first reading is to raise all those issues you just brought up. Between now and the next meeting, we can address every single one of those concerns that you have, meaning the professional staff can, so that when we get to the public hearing and the public can express their concerns, we'll have answers or we'll be able to be flexible enough. That's the reason we do it, is so that you don't find yourself in a position saying, I'm not going to vote on this tonight, it's poorly written, it doesn't address all the issues. You've expressed that, and I hope you continue to express that to the administrative staff so that we can address each one of those before the meeting next, in 2 weeks, second week of August, and we will do that. And I can tell you why it's there. It's because we got a lot of property in the city that has been sitting around and nobody's really discovered that we owned it, and we have to have a policy and a procedure of how to get rid of it. I'm the one that brought it up quite a while ago when I found out we didn't have a policy and a procedure of how to deal with certain pieces of property that have no purpose or no value. For example, we have numerous alleys and dedicated right-of-ways in the community that need to be abandoned. Now that's a procedure under statute that will have to be followed. But we don't have to do that for certain remnants that we may have because of some of the highway projects or city projects, street projects rather. So it's trying to develop a policy that we can, as the administrative staff, can prepare you as council people when we do find something that should have been dealt with 10, 15, 20 years ago. That's the biggest problem. These are problems that have been buried for years, and some idiot like me came up and found them, you know, and I think you should get done with them.
Gerald?
So this does apply to real property as well as personal
Absolutely.
property? Okay, I didn't get that implication from it at all.
Well, that's why I'm answering your questions, because I understand. And I apologize for taking the mask off when I talk. I just can't talk with a mask. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, moving on. Introduction of new business. Update on downtown cameras. Tara?
So last week I met with my vendor contract regarding the camera systems we have already at the PD. We took a walk down Brown Street. On the west side of Brown Street, there is a direct connection to the PD roof line. We could put 2 cameras pointing up and down the street, both at
A little bit closer to the mic.
Brown and Rives and Brown and Davenport. Lloyd and I talked, we do have a DVR unit at the PD with 8 ports left in it to handle those 4. However, when I talked to Rick about them being on a continual feed, they would use up the storage on our DVR unit within a week or 2. And Lloyd and I are both, the chief and I are both concerned about losing critical juvenile interviews and those type of things. So I definitely recommend its own DVR unit, but it is possible. We can do it. It would run off the power and the Wi-Fi for the PD.
Tom?
Is there, were you able to get any cost of what it would cost to get its own DV and,
Yes.
okay. Is it doable? I mean, how expensive is it, basically?
It's like 5,000. Sorry. Okay, I left it. It's like $5,900, $5,960, roughly. That was installation, the DVR unit, switches, mounting everything on the roof, and 4 cameras.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, are we gonna continue to look into this more, Tara? Are we gonna, next council meeting or sometime shortly down the road approve this? Or what are you looking, are you looking to do some more research on some other possibilities? I know we're planning on doing some updating for, the city, you know, the servers and stuff like that, and I don't know if waiting until that would be a better option, but.
Well, it won't be directly connected to that because we don't want those cameras directly, the IP addresses into our network. So we would have that separate from our network, just like we have the cameras separate from our network at the PD. So it would be separate from that project anyways. I mean, that's up to you guys.
Right. Yeah, I know there's
It's
other.
not been budgeted for, of course, but
Right. Yeah, I know there's other municipalities that have, you know, their own separate IP for that specifically that's not connected to anything else. Some cameras can turn 360 degrees whenever you wanted to turn that way. If you wanted it to face a certain direction one day, you could turn it 180 degrees, you know, later.
yeah, there would be 2 cameras that so he could go up and down Brown Street. And it would just be a continual feed. There would be no, like, the ones we have the PD in the alley do by motion. And then the ones we have internal, we flip a switch when we want them to record. But these would be continual feeds, so they would probably hold a week or 2 of you know, videos before the drive starts refurbishing itself. It'll delete the older and renew the new ones. So, but he said the pan-wise, it would go quite a ways.
Okay, so if you got a separate DVR,
Correct, that was the quote with the separate DVR.
how long would that store for?
About a week or 2, he thought, because it's continual feed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, recording.
Right. What would be an upgrade to that if you wanted it to go for 3 weeks?
I can ask him. I mean, we won't know until we, you know, until we start recording too, you know what I
Right.
mean? But it is 4 cameras on continual feed, 24/7.
4,
so.
okay. I thought it was 2. You
2 at each location, I apologize.
Okay.
Yep, 2 at each location,
All
to
right.
go up and down the street.
Eileen?
Tara, have we looked into, rather than having a standalone DVR system, some sort of cloud-based storage that might be less expensive or less maintenance?
No, I have not.
That might be something else we could look into so that we're not having to store it on, you know, maybe there might be more available storage that way.
Tom?
He was first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Is there any reason for this to need to be a 24/7 continuous feed? Is it possible that the RPD or council or somebody could make a determination on peak hours of when they want those cameras to be on? And it seems to me that that might, if we've only got it on a third of the day, that might increase the amount of longevity. Is there a reason why that would be difficult or not?
I think he could set it for recording certain times a day.
Okay.
Tom?
Zach, do you know of any grants that would be available to address this?
Well, I think if it's a limited circumstance here, we'd want to look at what the data was if there had been known incidents where the cameras would have aided in, if it was a situation that rose to a level that video evidence would have been helpful. But I think as part of the downtown as a whole, it might be worth an exercise to say, are there areas of downtown where surveillance is really important and would be valuable? And then from there, you can try to identify a funding source, but not as of now. There hasn't been, because the scope, as I understood, was really limited to that intersection.
Sure.
Mayor?
Ryan?
Yeah, talking about Tom's question there, I know that there is other places that have received grants for funding for a whole camera system. Other law enforcement agencies in Wisconsin have gotten that, so that is a possibility to try and research some of that. I'm not sure what grant timelines are right now, or but they are out there. That's how they've gotten funded before.
Yeah. I'd like to go that route first to look at funding as grants or some sort of help in that way, so that we're not adding to the budget.
And I think that the ones that I've seen, the upfront cost is covered under the grant, and then a lot of places pay a monthly service fee to keep the store for storage and stuff, and that would go to a police department's budget, something like that. But
The system we currently have now, we got on a grant, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know which grant it was, So the system we have now was replaced just this last year on a grant to replace the systems, So.
And I just want to touch on one more thing that somebody else said. David mentioned trying to cut the time back. In my opinion, I'd like to steer away from doing that. In my opinion, as a law enforcement officer, you don't know when you might potentially be looking for a suspect vehicle that came through at 2 in the afternoon or at 2 o'clock in the morning. So that one time that you might need that camera and you said, hey, we got it shut off for 5 hours, might not be very good for that situation.
Eileen?
Should we decide to go forward with this project, I would like to see a full scope of how the cameras would be utilized. I have had several city residents express concern to me that this would replace patrolling, or that there would be an officer stationed in front of it just waiting for somebody to commit a crime so they could run out and get them. Well, I don't think that's the purpose of the camera, personally. I know that there are some concerns along those lines, and so before they're installed, I think there should be something made public as to how those cameras are going to be monitored, and their exact purpose.
Chris?
Gerald?
I think a lot of people are also interested in how long the pictures or the video will be kept and at what point it's disposed of.
Chris?
Ryan?
Yeah, just again, as a law enforcement officer, I just want to give my perspective in front of the public so that they can hear. We don't have time to sit and watch cameras. If the public thinks that, I feel for them. I understand where they may have concerns with that, but there are so many different functions throughout the day that I know that the Rhinelander Police Department would not be sitting there watching those cameras for fun. They would, however, spend a lot of time reviewing the cameras if there was something that was of interest for crime specifically that they wanted to get some leads. So, and then Gerald's question too. In my opinion, or my experience, I think that the footage wouldn't be kept unless it was saved. If you had a month where you could go back, if you didn't pull that footage from in that month time period, I think it would disappear.
Andrew?
There's other intersections that have cameras, correct? Oh, there's not.
Nope. We have cameras around the PD, which is the first time since probably the 90s that we had cameras. And when I started the PD in the early 90s, we had cameras in the lobby or in the back alley and out in front of the fire department. Those were disconnected years ago. This is the first time we've added cameras just to the PD, but there are no, just private cameras from businesses, but otherwise, no, we don't. Our alley, our parking lots, that's it.
I also want to bring attention to the fact that we're discussing an item that wasn't budgeted for by somebody who's doing research on it, who is not capable of actually getting the rest of her job description fulfilled right now as we chase things down. Not that that's a big deal. It's just the reality of us pursuing things this way does have a consequence on our staffing and the work we give them. So to be conscientious of that. When we look at these things, there's a IT structure that needs to be built. We listen to the parts of this, and it's not that these things shouldn't be brought forth and discussed, but appropriately, just to remind the council of our job is to set policy on how we take care of our people. So, thank you. Any further discussion? Discuss the purchase of new microphones for council chambers. Andrew, I believe you brought this forward.
Yes. I would like to make a motion to proceed with selection to meet our live streaming needs due to COVID and Routes to Recover program, not to exceed $4,000.
There's a motion
Barnett, second.
and a second. Any further discussion?
I couldn't really hear exactly what Andrew said. I think I like it, but I'd like to make sure
Yeah,
that I like
absolutely.
it.
A little bit closer to your microphone. It wasn't quite
Sorry.
picking up. It's hard to hear.
To proceed with selection to meet our live streaming needs due to COVID and Routes to Recovery program, not to exceed $4,000.
He's explaining the funding source, the possibilities for microphones, and the necessity in his motion.
Okay, we're talking about to replace these. We're not talking about the future of
No.
extending any contract with live streaming, anything like that.
No, it's strictly for these.
Perfect, thank you.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Go ahead.
Yes, could I please cut in, and I'm very sorry, but I need to get that exactly right. Do you have it written down?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, may I? Yes, thank
I do
you.
have one
That
more
will
question
make
there.
it better for me.
Oh, if Zach is going to explain what
Routes to
what it
Recovery?
is, or Jeremy had something picked out, I'm not, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to explain the Routes to Recovery program. That's the governor's reimbursement for municipal expenses as a result of COVID. And because we're now live streaming, there's a connection between our capabilities with these or limitations with these and the ability for it to be caught up on live stream. So as far as we know, this program will be able to recover the entire cost of the replacement microphones with this program. So that's where the language came from as to the funding source, if there are any questions about that. But there have not, so basically your action would initiate final review by staff and then ultimate purchase and then reimbursement or, application for reimbursement with the next round of Routes to Recovery, which Wendy, I think is in September, end of September. So next round we'll get our reimbursement. We'll submit for reimbursement for that at that time. So, but it would happen before then. We don't need to wait until we get the grant in order for the purchase to happen. So that would happen sooner than that.
Any other questions? Jeremy? I'll have you step up to the mic, please, so that the live stream people can hear, i.e. the need for the microphone.
I have looked into this a bit, and Mr. Hex got me a quote from Will at Northland Music Center, and a decent quote was about $4,999.99, but additional up to $300 for miscellaneous parts and cables. So you may want to amend it to $5,000. And it can range anywhere from, that was about the lowest for really good product. That was about the lowest that we found, and it goes up to, there's way better products, and it's a little different type of microphone system, and that lowest that even starts at is 10,000. So this is just hardwired mic, and it's a push button type style, and it seems to be a lot of other places use it. So, but I just wanted to make it, let you know, from 4 to maybe 5 to stay pretty safe.
Do I gotta say it again? Val's got
Just
my
amend your motion.
Yeah, I'll amend my motion, not to exceed
Or
$5,000.
does he have to withdraw? You can withdraw your motion.
Friendly amendment.
Yeah.
I will withdraw my motion.
And do you withdraw your second?
I do.
Now make a new motion. I know.
I would like to make a motion to
Make it 55. With the extra, I got a question. Before he makes his motion, can I say something? You know, Jeremy mentioned the extra $300 in accessory or stuff. I mean, I don't want to make it for, $5,000 if it's going to come out at $5,500. So if we could make it for $5,500, not to exceed that, I think it would be better than $5,000. I'll let you make the motion if you want, though, Andrew.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to proceed with the selection to meet our live streaming needs due to COVID and the Routes to Recover program, not to exceed $5,500.
Barnett, second.
Any further discussion? Yes.
Is there a warranty with them? Yes. Okay, thank you. That's all I got.
Val, please call roll.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Rossing,
Aye.
Kelly, Barnett,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Holt.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. There is the correct invoice is in your packet, so on your agenda, we will scratch out $6,337 and, I already scratched out, so I think it says 50 cents for $4,762.50. So C is approve invoice from Technology Management in the amount of $4,762.50 for IT consolidation project.
I would make a motion to approve that as presented.
Mikulowski, second.
And Tara, would you like to speak, or you don't have to?
If somebody has any questions, that's why I
Any
came up here. You looked at me like
questions?
maybe.
Tom?
Is this within the budget?
Nope.
No.
It'll be a budget amendment.
A budget amendment? Okay.
Correct. This is a part of a project that Tara started a good year ago, working on pretty hard with the idea that we'd maybe be borrowing this year or whatever the case might be. It did not happen, and therefore there were expenditures made that, we should not, we're obligated to pay. I mean, they did the work. Even when I brought up the cameras before, it's because we're venturing down the same type of alley where we're having her do work that's not in her scope to actually get done for what she's allowed to do. I.e., here we are, once again, with a bill that we should pay, and it's time to pay it for sure.
Mayor.
Gerald?
Could we have just a summary of what this is for?
Oh, sure. Tara?
Sure. Last year, I think some of you guys have been in the audience that weren't council members until this year, but March or April of last year, I was asked by the prior city administrator to become a IT help desk / coordinator of IT services for the city, based on the IT stuff I've done at the PD. So in May, he assigned me to shadow our IT consultant at all the city departments, some which she does service and some which we have never serviced. She has never serviced. So we went and did a complete audit virtually from every building, streets, water, wastewater, gathered all the data of equipment, what's old, what's new, what needs to be replaced, how we would consolidate from 8 servers to 1 at the PD in a secure location where public can't access it, where it's backed up with a generator. That's what we worked on for about 14 months. There was a lot of things besides equipment software. We've talked about websites, we've talked about Office 365, we talked about domains, combinations, phones even, that would be phase 2. So an actual design was made and a structure made up for that. And city administrator, prior city thought it would be approved and actually told most of the department heads not even to budget for IT or anything to do in their IT budgets because of this consolidation project. So most of them didn't budget and now they don't have the funds for that. But this is basically the work, some of the work we did after Daniel was dismissed. We presented some of it to Zach and the mayor and to Steve Sorensen. We had to get ready for that because we had dropped the ball for a few months. So that's
Tom?
Long story short.
I want to apologize because I thought we were talking about the tablatures. I skipped over what we're actually talking about. So obviously she did the work, so of course it should be paid. So I like
Actually,
to.
this bill is for Peggy.
I'm sorry?
This bill, the invoice, if you look
Yeah.
at it, is from Peggy.
Yeah. So I would like to make a motion to approve the invoice from Technology Management in the amount of $6,337.
Nope.
No? What are we doing?
4,000.
I already did it.
I'm sorry.
The motion's already been.
Motion's already been made?
Yeah,
Wow, I'm really out of it right now.
it's okay.
I'm lost.
Yeah, it's all right.
Was it seconded?
Yes,
Okay,
and we are on discussion.
okay.
Any further questions for
apologize.
Tara?
Yeah, I just want to make one comment. I think that we are so far behind the times on some stuff that we need to get done, and I think that this needs to be paid, and I think further investigation into other stuff that we should do as a city should be done in the future, whether that's in the next budget year or whatever, so we can get up to par on some stuff we need to have done.
Carrie?
So my question is Tara had said that the department heads didn't budget IT into their budget, but was that moved into a separate IT fund within the budget?
I guess I should clarify that. Everybody has an IT budget, but they didn't budget for replacements.
Oh, okay.
So they didn't budget for the servers that need to be replaced, PCs that need to be replaced because they were told it would be in a special borrowing project and all into one project.
Then my follow-up question is, going into the next budget cycle that we're getting started, I would think we would want a consolidated IT budget versus an IT budget for each individual department.
There will still be some expenses, just explain that, like the PD is still going to have certain expenses that the rest of them don't, but they usually have a line item, and I know the fire department has some IT expenses that others don't, water, but hardware and maintenance.
Eileen? No? Okay. With that, Val, please call roll.
Aye. Rossing,
Aye.
Kelly, Barnett,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Holt,
Aye.
Mikulowski.
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you, Tara, for your hard work. Discuss replacement of election tabulators to be phased out for the 2022 election year. Val?
The election equipment that we have right now will be phased out for 2022. it's very expensive to get new equipment. But when we are mandated to change, we have to change. Our equipment that we have right now will not be serviced any longer than through 2021. As you can see, aside from my memo, I have the sheet from the county as far as what type of a tabulator that we would like to get. They do come at a cost. The all-in-one, it's called the ICE, the ImageCast Evolution, includes a tabulator, ballot box, the ATI, 1-year hardware maintenance warranty, and 1 year of firmware. We also have annual costs ongoing. We are serviced by Command Central. They've done a wonderful job for this city in the past many years. That is what the county uses for their services. So we are going to need new machines. If we purchase them between the middle and end of August, we will get the price of 60, I have 66, I thought it was $6,400 down here. If we do not and we wait, it will be $8,400, so $2,000 more per machine. Right now, we have 4 tabulators, the ballot feed. We also have 2 touchscreen for ADA compliance. These machines will combine both of them. I'm asking for I need at least 2 of them to get us going. We may want to use more. For a presidential election, it's kind of hard to deal with just 2. But after this year, we'll be using our old ones for the presidential. We have another 4 years to decide. I really believe that we need to go with at least 2 of them. And I know they're costly, but what we would have to do is order them now. The county will pay for them. They're going to be ordering everybody's in the county. They'll pay for all of them. We would have an agreement with the county that we would pay them back in 2021 for these machines. So, do you have any questions?
I do.
Ryan?
Did you say, these are, you said 2021, so technically for this election, I'm not saying I don't want to buy these, but what we have right now, we could make it through this November election?
We will use the old ones. I don't want to do any switching, and we don't need to put these in place until 2022. However, I recommend getting them in and getting everyone trained on them for 2021. Otherwise, it's mass chaos.
So you want to get them because it's a cost savings?
Yes,
and
because-
so you can do the training and have it ready for 2022?
Yes, in 2021, whatever elections we have, and I'm hoping it's a smaller year than this year with 5 of them, there will be plenty of time to train people. And hopefully COVID, will allow us to do more trainings and things. Right now, we're kind of stuck with that. But we have the old equipment, which works. It's just that it will be phased out. So we have a year to put the new stuff in place before 2022. For the rest of 2020, the old equipment works just fine. Carrie?
So I know that there's a cost savings this year, and you only want 2, but we need 4 or 6 total.
We could probably get by with 2, but 4 would be ideal. We have the 8 districts. We normally will put, we normally put 2 districts per machine. So there's 4 districts in a polling place.
Okay, so then my question is once the end of August this year is done, is there going to be another sale on them next year where
No.
we can buy more, or wouldn't it be?
They're giving us a bulk rate, or they're giving the county a bulk rate. If we said in 2021, I think we're going to need to have 2 more, we'd be paying the $8,440 per machine, most likely.
Okay.
Yep. Gerald?
Yeah, along that line, I appreciate Bill's efforts to keep the cost down, but I'm concerned that if we need 4 machines now, that we will need 4 in the future, and we might as well get them all at once.
Val, will you explain our polling location situation as it stands also right now?
Yes. Due to COVID again, we've been forced to make changes in our polling locations. So we normally had the Department on Aging, and we also had the Oneida County Sheriff's Department. We could not use those locations. Then we went and asked the high school in an emergency if we could use the high school gymnasium, and that worked out fine for the past few elections because, you know, there were no kids with COVID. So we would use the gym, but coming up in August, there's a possibility of kids being in the gym.
Any possibility of the dome or centralized location for one polling place?
Right, David had his hand up, so
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, respectfully, I would be in favor of purchasing two, not four. Currently, given the cost of the machines and also the fact that I think the trends suggest that the likelihood in my mind would be that two would be adequate given just demographic trends and also the increase in the use of mail-in ballots and such. So I would go ahead and make a motion to extend authorization to pursue two machines with the expectation of reimbursing the county, correct?
correct. I would like to also add to that, to your comment, please. Any absentee ballots also have to be fed through the machines.
They do, but they don't get fed through piecemeal by constituents, right? That's a consolidated process.
No.
No.
You have, the election workers on election day
On election day. do
take
that.
each ballot, read the name of the elector, and put their ballot through the machine. It's faster than people standing in line. The ballots have already been voted,
Okay.
but they have to physically, and we've got
Right.
about 1,200 ballots right now for the August election.
Okay.
It takes a little while.
Anderson second. And then I'm okay with getting two at this point, but I think we need to recognize when we're budgeting a couple of years down the line that we may need to get two more.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Val, please call roll.
Okay. May I also have David please read the motion back since I was sorry?
Yes, the motion was to extend authorization to you, Val, to purchase two machines with the expectation of reimbursing the county, correct?
Thank you. All right.
Val, call roll.
Rossing,
Aye.
Kelly, Barnett,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Holt,
Aye.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Mayoral appointments to the Ethics Board. Michael Miller. Gary Entz. Doug Nelson. Christy Anderson. Lynn Feldman. Alternates, Randy Bates and Ray Cheatham. I'll accept the motion.
I will make a motion to approve the mayoral appointments to the Ethics Board as presented.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If you remember correctly, we put a posting out there a couple times asking anybody that was interested. We had 11 applicants, of which we interviewed all 11, and these were the persons that fulfilled the obligation of what the ordinance said, and then number two, their interests and their interviewing skills. There is a question form that's available with Val if you want to see the questions that they were asked.
Mayor.
Yes.
Sometime.
She raises her hand and then
Oh,
puts
I'm
it
sorry. Go
down,
ahead.
and then she
Go
raises
ahead,
her
Ryan.
hand and puts it down, and I'm like, all right, I don't even know. Ryan.
Sometimes I'm not very good with names. I'm really good with faces. And as these names come across, I don't recognize any of them. I'm just curious what, out of the 11, what you used, if you could just tell us and the public if there was some sort of a interview process or how you chose to select these people. And
Double fold. Not only did I do an interview process, but then I also had a questionnaire that they could fill out the questions and then send them in, so they could give some time and thought. I know that each person individually has questions before them, responds a little bit differently. Also had people that would interview at different times, and I knew doing 11 interviews that by the 11th person, they're not going to get the same attention as the first. So how do you have that as an inquiry? I used the basis of the ordinance that came out of Steve Sorensen as far as our suggestions of what we needed for an ethics board, and then looked for people that did not have particular interest in a politic, but in the idea of what is ethical. Ethical and legal are different, and we needed somebody to help us with our ethics here. Eileen?
Just wanted it on the record, I did note that one of the persons that you nominated had the same last name as one of our council members, Anderson. So just on the record
Correct.
that there's no relation between,
One of the things they
Okay.
got was the conflict of interest, and they had to fulfill that obligation. Once again, they all read the ordinance in detail, and the reason we actually even have the alternates, just in case there was ever a situation or a period where they're like, I want to recuse myself from this, we have an alternate to fill in for them. Actually, if you're wondering, it was a very enjoyable process to interview these people. It was very interesting. They're in-depth and wonderful people of our community that want to make sure that we're doing things ethically. It was fun. Tom? Yeah, your mic's not on.
All right, would it be possible to bring them to the next council meeting and introduce them to us?
Absolutely. If you read the ordinance, they are a body that somewhat governs themselves, so they don't have to come, that way, but they are allowed to. Tonight I said that I wouldn't ask them to come and be questioned or otherwise. It was just basically the acceptance of the position and moving forward. But sure, we can extend that.
Just for the record, one of the reasons that we didn't want him to come tonight is if you voted no, that would be kind of bad. But now if you vote yes, then of course they would want to come and be here. Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Discuss the scope of the housing needs and market assessment.
All right. So obviously this discussion's come up in a variety of formats that some of you have heard if you attended the mayor's listening session or were able to attend that. There was some mention about housing at that time. The work sessions, the mayor had some items shared with you as far as background information goes. And then at our last council meeting, Carrie and I talked briefly about the pilot program that the Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority was contemplating. In addition, Grow North is also working to, I would say, almost convene municipalities within the Grow North region, which is pretty large and pretty rural, with quite a number of municipalities and counties. So what they volunteered to do with Oneida County and specific to Rhinelander is to continue to act as that convener to bring groups that otherwise might not be working together. And so I guess tonight would be a continuation of what the council wants to do as it relates to housing needs and market assessment. So I'm curious, you've had some time to potentially mull this over. You maybe read some of the resources that were emailed to you. Maybe you've had some personal experiences or talked to constituents that have had experiences. I'm just curious if there's anything that would frame your thinking or expectations of what a housing needs and market assessment might accomplish. So I guess I would start with that. I mean, I've got some reflections that I've put together. I think I shared with all of you, but I'm more interested in hearing from you as we think about potentially putting together a formal scope. That would be the next step, is putting together a formal scope that defines exactly what we want that assessment to accomplish, and then put it out basically for funding streams. And we can talk about that in greater detail, but basically, depending on the scope, it's hard to shop around funding sources. For addressing workforce housing, there's different funding streams that'll support workforce housing initiatives. If we're supporting senior housing, there's not a lot out there for funding assessments that focus specifically on senior housing, but if it has a workforce component to it, where you're bringing seniors out of their individual living arrangement and supporting workforce housing for beginners. So I guess I'm just trying to explain that there's a number of scenarios that could support a funding situation as it relates to the housing topic. And I've understood that this is one of the emerging topics that really the city should be concerned with as it relates to economic development and just supporting growth in the city and the region as a whole.
Little background on that, at least from my perspective in conversation with them daily, is as we look at even funding sources, we talk about grant writing and those possibilities, we look at where our area of need is, and then it has to grow more and more specific. We have generalized needs. We've listened to those in the listening sessions and then also the workshops. We then drive it down a little bit further when he talked about the cameras and that need being based on a specific circumstance. This is where, as a council, we have to say, okay, if we know housing's a need, how are we going to address it? What are some of the questions that we would look at for the scope so we know how to proceed? Is it fixing up all the houses that we have out there? Is it moving people into a better standard of housing, whether it be apartments or whatever the case might be, to allow those houses to reproduce themselves? Is it how in the world do we want to function, and what kind of scope do we want to look at to do that? Where's the immediate area need? Is it where we have young people leaving the area and we need to have that workforce housing that captures them before they leave the area? Is it after that? Is it transition housing? Those are the options, and each one of those funding sources asks us to be specific with it, or at least get closer than obviously where we're at. So the reason this is on there is I know you guys got sent out the market preparedness survey and some of the other working details of getting there. Now we just need to know basically what are some of our hopes and dreams, or what we've heard. So he had his hand
go
up
ahead.
first, just so you know, but yeah.
I would be really interested in the workforce housing. One of the things that I'd really like to see for the future of our city is a lot more economic development, bringing in jobs, upping our tax rates because of the bigger businesses being here. And I think the workforce housing would be an extreme incentive to bring in some of these bigger companies that could actually help boost our city monetarily. So,
Brian?
Yeah, I just had a question. If anybody has any studies or any research on the places that we have for nicer apartments in town and how full they are, I think that would be a good assessment as to how much somebody is willing to pay for rent, and what their capacity is right now. Rhinelander, the numbers that I've been told are over around that 60% rental population, and I think that to make our properties more valuable, you want to have, if somebody owns that and they're renting it to somebody, you want to have them have an incentive to keep that place looking nice. And right now, that might not be the case because there's not much housing out there, choices. So this is something that's kind of new to me, to be honest with you. So some of your questions, Zach, I haven't really given it enough thought yet, maybe. So I need some more information myself.
Yeah, even your question there has multi-layered answers. When
Yeah,
you talk
correct.
about enforcement of our codes and the rental properties that are there, that would then increase the price of that, and who would have to pay that price to live in a place for, you know, for housing. Those all have multi-level effects, and I guess that's where we're kind of looking at what's going to be the basis of our movement of all the properties to increase that value. How will that happen, whether it be workforce of affordable housing, to move the people that aren't affording to pay? You know, what's there? I know Terry deals with those enforcement issues, and they get harder and harder when why would you put a penalty on somebody who already can't afford to be there? I mean, it just seems to be somewhat asinine. How do we give them a better lifestyle possibility that then allows that property to increase in value? These are some of the things we need. Also, though, what demographic are we looking to market to, whether it's bring people to the area? So it actually has multi-level questions as far as what we can do with it and different places it can go. Do we give it back programs in facade and fixing up houses? Well, if it's 60% and nobody can afford to maintain it, is that really helping? You know, so looking at the housing, and we'll call it, I'm going to call it a crisis at this point in our city, just because we're that far behind. We're behind to where the houses that could be rehabbed and fixed up are not being rehabbed and fixed up. They're being sold to somebody who rents it for twice what they're paying in a mortgage, and they're not actually putting any money into it. So it's depleting the values of our houses. You talk about affordability too. The ALICE rating here in our city is 65% live below the ALICE rating. ALICE rating is a livable wage, where they can actually go out and use our facilities. Economic development, it doesn't help if we have a trampoline park and none of the kids can afford to go there. I mean, it just wouldn't help. So how in the world do we get that portion up? That's what we're looking at. So, Gerald.
Yeah, I think we ought to pursue something along the line of affordable workforce housing. We're not like Vail or Aspen yet, but I think we're somewhat in the position that people can't afford to rent here, even though to many of us it looks like a relatively low-priced real estate market. The rentals are not that low.
Carrie, do you have
or that available?
Carrie, can you give a realistic expectation on what these houses look, what they're renting for?
Yeah, so I work at social services, and obviously part of that we do home visits. And the houses that I go into, they are relatively older homes. I mean, we're talking probably getting close to 80 years old or older. They are run down, but the property management that typically owns these homes are charging upwards of $700 a month per rent, which a lot of our folks in this town, I mean, they really can't afford that high of rent. But to get anything nicer, it's up and above that. So we're kind of really in a pickle when it comes to housing. The affordability of it, I know we have the duplexes over in my district on the west side that is more of affordable housing, but they're limited, and there's a wait list to get into those duplexes. And so all the other houses seem to be getting snatched up by property management or rental properties, and like Mayor said, they're not being fixed up. They're just taking in the revenue without having any improvements made. That's what I've been seeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the people that are paying $700 a month.
I mean, that's a house payment.
It is, but they don't have the ability or the credit to buy the house themselves. So that's the problem that you're in.
That's exactly the problem.
So.
And I'm talking some of these floors, they're either down to plywood floors, there's missing ceiling tiles, there's holes in walls. I mean, they're really not structurally, they're not where they need to be.
Terry, would you like to get up and speak at all about enforcement? I'd appreciate it if you would, put it that way. I can tell you that Terry and I had a good moment today as we were examining a neighborhood, and we were just talking about garbage pickup and whatever. We watched somebody do the act of actually cleaning some of the stuff up a week after you approached them. So it does have positive effects. We do have an effect. Our movement here in council does lead to better standard of living for all the people of our community. But go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, it's really a double-edged sword in our community because they're getting a high rent for a substandard housing. You know, and we could institute a rental housing program that could fund itself and make sure that we have safe housing and clean housing. But what does that do to the rent price for people that already can't afford, you know, the rent that's in our community? The lower income duplexes over on the west side, they reinvest every year into making those nice, but they're also subsidized federally, so they can afford to do that. A lot of these places, even places that people could buy for what they're paying on rent, there are programs that would help them. There's landlords that are buying them and just re-renting them, and they're not putting any money back into them. So we're in a really difficult situation. I'm afraid that I would like to see it cleaned up. I would like to see some type of rental housing type code. We tried to do that years ago, but I'm fearful that a rental housing code could increase rent and make places even more unaffordable, which is why we try to, through enforcement, clean up as much as we can.
Thank you. So, not that this is an actionable item, but we definitely need to think about the scope of what this means. We need you to reach out to your constituents and find out what they think of housing and the housing situations, and then how to address them. As you see emails come your way, please spend time reading them. I have started something with Val this week, which is basically a folder in the office of the clerk, where when I get done looking at information, I might make a copy of it and put it in there. So that way you understand where the information's coming from prior to. I know it's difficult to come to council and see something listed and then say you should vote on it. The idea there is to direct policies, so therefore you're not worried about what you're voting on, it's what's happening, which is the reason we did the listening sessions and the work sessions. Start preparing us to look at the problems, and then as we bring things forward, microphones being a good example. We knew microphones were a problem for weeks and weeks as we were handing them around. It came as a solution with a funding source and whatever, all in one fell swoop. That makes it easy to make the decision to do it. But in that file, hopefully I'll share other articles, other points of contention and or otherwise. When we get information, we can put it in there. But don't be afraid to share what you have also. The big portion that you asked about, the first reading of a ordinance or whatever, is that communication that happens in the next couple weeks. You know, we started the search for the administrator, you know, and that took a last minute second again to request that information to come forward so we can continue on that search. It's a dialogue. This is a continual dialogue, but thank you. Anything else you want to share?
Just in conclusion, I'll take some of your thoughts and try to put it into a scope. I'll give you just a quick snapshot of what was, it's not long, just some considerations as you're thinking about what do you want to accomplish with any sort of assessment, because you know, the wider the scope, the longer it'll take to accomplish, and knowing that any housing assessment's no less than 60 days out to accomplish. I mean, if you bring in a partner with a firm to help do some data collection, et cetera. So I would just, you know, suggest kind of finding a way to strike a balance to get it accomplished in a fairly narrow window of time, but also sync it up with some of the federal subsidized, some of the tax credit programs, et cetera, as developers are going to look for markets to do work where the data is available, because that's certainly what's lacking today. Developers are looking at Rhinelander and saying, you know, if you don't have a market assessment, we really can't do business if you're going to do certain types of projects. So in effect, I would suggest that a housing needs assessment acknowledges the existing housing stock. There's been references to that already. That there's some data collection on the housing type. There's a variety of housing types, not a lot of variety in Rhinelander certainly, but between single family, multifamily apartments, townhouses, duplexes, et cetera. Owner occupied versus rentals, that's a really important consideration to figure out what that mix truly is in the community. I think anecdotally we can assume or we hear certain statistics, but it's really important to affirm or to correct what might be not true out there in that space. Some of this data is also available at the county level, so it's not like you have to go door to door and get the information. It's just more or less pulling together the data sources. Overall age and quality. Again, when you're speaking to a developer of single-family homes, for example, and you can tell them 60% is over a certain age in a community, it gives them a good assessment of, well, there's an opportunity to add some new housing stock. Potentially assesses gaps in those various housing types, as we just talked about, and then identifies unmet demand, engaging with the local community, employers, and realtors. We heard from a realtor at the work sessions. I think it's important to bring those employer and realtor perspectives to the table, or you just don't, you may miss the mark ultimately in what you're looking to answer. And then also develop short and long-term recommendations, both for the council and for city staff to pursue, that would address availability, affordability, quality, and opportunity for new and redevelopment of property. You know, something that I've identified with the city, there really hasn't been a lot of new housing priorities. I know some cities do rental inspection programs or rental registration programs nearby not nearby, but sort of in this part of the state. Ashland is a community that's implemented that. A lot of these things have been tested in the state Supreme Court and have now gotten settled, but it gives an opportunity for a municipality to get a better handle on the types of housing and the conversion of those single-family owner-occupieds to a single-family rental. You know, you don't maybe want to stop that in cases where there's a lot of conversion from owner-occupieds to rental stock in your neighborhoods. An emphasis on tax-exempt properties and non-city-owned properties. So thinking about all the property that the city owns. There's a big map in this other room that talks about all the exempt properties in the city. It's a great opportunity to recapture some tax base, as has been mentioned by a few of you tonight. And then make sure that it's also developer-facing, that a developer can take it and recognize, okay, this is a market snapshot, a point in time in Rhinelander that perhaps they can address with a product, if it's multifamily apartments again, or if it's duplex products or whatever else, and it's actionable to the developers. And then finally, to establish and focus on priorities. I think it's important that
No.
my cue to wrap it up here. So essentially, making sure that it's actionable, that we establish and focus on priorities, because you don't want it to be a fancy document with a bunch of numbers and data in it. You really need something that allows you as a council, as a policy-making body, to take action on various initiatives that can support housing in the community. And then also, again, back to staff, that it gives staff and the administration some effort of some focus on priorities. So those are my thoughts. I will take input from you for a period of time. Again, we probably want to agenda some sort of scope so we can get a thumbs up or thumbs down on next steps if we're going to pursue funding opportunities, because again, funding cycles are not always quick either. But there are some that are rolling funding cycles, so the quicker we get moving, the quicker we get an application, the quicker we get a response. So that'll conclude my comments on housing.
Any other questions before we move on? Thank you. All right. Introduction of unfinished business. Approval of the final payment to Peterson for the Wabash area project in the amount of $30,382.38. Mark, do you want to speak to it?
So this pay request is for work completed on the Wabash project. Work was actually completed mid-May. At that time, we paid the contractor for all quantities complete, held 2.5% of the final contract price until we could do a final walkthrough. That final walkthrough was done in May. All punch list items were complete, and the contractors fulfilled their obligation on this contract, and we would recommend releasing the final payment, which is the retainage for the $30,000.
David?
Motion to approve final Peterson pay request for the Wabash area project in the amount of $30,382.38.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Eileen?
Mark, as long as you're up there, I have had conversations with at least one person who lives on Wabash who's unhappy with the condition that her property has been left in. I know you've had conversations with her as well. Can you tell me, are there plans in the works to rectify the issues that have been brought up by this resident as well as some of her neighbors who also have issues with their properties?
I know of one person you're talking about. I don't know of any other issues with any other neighbors. The issue that you're talking about concerns a retaining wall.
It's not just a retaining wall. She requested a retaining wall and was told no, that they would grade her property correctly. It was not graded correctly. They replaced her steps, which I've seen pictures. They didn't do a great job. The sidewalk in front of her house is deteriorating. Even the streets in front of their houses are deteriorating already. Her driveway was graded 16 inches, which means that her slope went from like this to this, which is difficult to get up in the wintertime, even with a 4-wheel drive. I've got tons of pictures. I've got tons of, before and after. She had pictures of what her house looked like before, what it looks like now, and I have to agree with her that the workmanship is not fantastic. It was not what was agreed to when the residents were shown the plans. So I'm just curious, are any of the issues that have been brought up going to be addressed?
Most of those issues I was unaware of. I know she was, the blending of into her yard went back to the retaining wall. It has been city's practice not to put in retaining walls because retaining walls will go on private property, becomes a maintenance replacement issue, liability issue. So the retaining wall has never been a practice for the city to put those in. We blend in as best we can. With this particular design, because we widen the road from 30 feet face-to-face to 36 face-to-face, it produces some challenges, and some of those challenges involve the blending of the driveways. Now, her driveway from the back of the walk going up to towards the garage is a little steeper. What they had previously was the approach from the curb to the sidewalk was steep. We put that down to a standard 10%, where that was at about a 15%. That occurs when that terrace goes from 8 feet to 5 feet. We make some of those concessions, and that's standard practice for that approach. The difficulty with her property is that her house sits up, I would say 4 feet above the back walk. The houses on the other side are about at the curb elevation. In our design, we have a maximum warp, meaning curb on one side is limited by the height of the curb on the other side. We brought that curb up as high as we could in the widening of that road to be able to blend into her driveway. So unfortunately, when we make major changes on roadways like this, city streets, there are situations where the driveway slopes are not ideal for the property owner, and there's nothing that really can be addressed. As far as the condition of the sidewalk and the road, I'll go out and take a look at that. I was unaware of that prior to this discussion.
I guess my concern is that I think most of us here are private property owners, and if there was a city project that affected the road that I lived on, I would want reassurances that my property was pretty much going to be left in the condition that it was before they came in. You pay for your property, you own your property. And I do think in this person's case, that did not happen. Like I said, I've seen the before and afters, and it's disappointing. And if I were the property owner, I'd be making a stink as well. So my plan is to not vote for payment on this. I think if we go ahead and pay it off, that there's no motivation for the contractor to come back and fix what's been pointed out as flaws.
Mayor, I'm going to let Steve weigh in on this real quick.
Yeah, we got to make sure we have the right issues that are before us. There's two separate issues. One is the work is done, we owe for the work, we should pay for the work. That doesn't relieve the contractor of his warranty. The contractor has a warranty, and they are to maintain the property in the condition that it's supposed to be in. So we can go back to them for up to a year and say, you know, this has to be done, this has to be done, this has to be done. The retainage language would be a specific item that wasn't done according to the plans. And given that, I think that the best way to handle this would be to approve the motion subject to a review of the particular plans that relate to her particular home, so that we could, you know, we can deliberately zero in on that issue. I went down there today and looked at the property because I knew this was going to be an issue this evening. And there are a couple issues after today that I've determined that need to be addressed, and I talked to Zach about this, and we'll be talking tomorrow at our department meeting about it. But that may not be a reason to withhold the money, but that's a policy decision. I don't make policy, I just talk about the law. So I just wanted you to know that they can't escape liability if they didn't follow the plans. I've also talked to this lady, by the way, on a couple of occasions at length. And I will tell you, Eileen, she does have a moving perspective at times, which is the issue of the week. But there are some things that I saw that need to be addressed. We do have an overall problem we need to address, and that's some of the flaking on the concrete. But these are very technical things that we need to address. But we understand the problem, we're aware of the problem as a city, and it will be dealt with.
Do you want to respond back before I
Yeah.
move on? Go ahead.
Can I just ask what the consequence, so if we go back to the contractor under their warranty and say you need to do this, this, and this, and they don't, what are the consequences for the contractor at that point?
Well, there's a real initial, and that's that we could sue them for the cost of the repairs. And they would be responsible not only for the cost of suing them, because that's a breach of a contract, and the contract provides they'd be responsible for attorney's fees, which people like me love contracts like that. But the other side of the coin is it would kill their reputation if that's the kind of thing that they don't want over this little of an issue. So that's a negative also. And the third thing is they need to move on. They've got other projects and they've got to get going. So we have to get them in, get it done, and move on. The one thing that a lot of people will never recognize is that even though they own the boulevard, they own the sidewalk, but when there's a change made, it's never going to be the same as it was before. It just can't be. In this case, you moved it 6 inches, and that's a lot of territory when you come to roadways. But I went to her property, and I thought the issue was mowing. There's no problem with mowing. There is some junk in the side of her driveway that we could probably take a rake down there and get rid of that in no time flat. The retaining wall would not be a good idea on her property because she would have more problems than that than she has with the other. But I do agree that the stairs were not completely replaced to match the stairs that were there before. And that's an issue that we're going to talk about at the department heads meeting tomorrow.
She had also mentioned that when they laid the blacktop in her driveway up to where they did it at 8 o'clock at night in the fall. It was dark when they did it, and you can tell. So
Yeah, there's a gap area that has to be fixed, but that's pretty easy to fix.
I think there's just, I guess, just as a private property owner myself and as a citizen, if ultimately it was the city's decision to hire this company to come in and do this work, and if it were my property, I'd want to make sure that it was going to look as I was told it would look afterwards. Because the citizens have no say in whether the project gets done or not. They can't say you can do it everywhere except on my yard. So I guess I'm just setting precedents in this case that things will be handled correctly.
They will, but you also have to understand, and is this person, very persistent, does not represent all of the street, and does not represent, that street's beautiful. I mean, I drove up and down it a couple times today. I was waiting for the police to pick me up for being a stalker, but the reality is that the vast majority of that project looks great, and it really improved the neighborhood. But that's an outsider's perspective. I didn't, obviously, I looked at the before and after picture. That's where I noticed the sidewalk. The grass is pretty much the same as it was before, and the pitch is the same as it was before. And so, and you can drive cars up and down. That's not a problem. That's been proven. So those three things are the stairway, the material in the grass, and then the lip area that you just talked about. Those are the three things that we noticed.
David?
Yeah, I had a question for Steve. Addressing those concerns, there would be no point in making a friendly amendment to state that in the motion, would there? Okay, then I'll...
No, I think you'd vote for it. Again, that's policy. You know, I don't make policy. I saw a problem. This lady called me. She sent you a note. She's talked to probably Zach. I know she's talked to the department on several occasions. So I felt it was my responsibility to go down there. Because knew it was going to come up tonight, so I wanted to know what was there.
I'll take Gerald and then Mark.
Steve mentioned something about approving this contingent on getting some things cleared up for this woman, and I'm not clear what that would mean and why it wouldn't require an amendment.
Well, no, I think the policy is whether you're going to pay them or not. If you decide you're not going to pay them because you believe this gives you a leverage, then you should vote no against the motion. I'm just saying that you signed a contract. They could come back and sue us for not paying them. And the figuring out of what this would be certainly a lot less than $30,000. You know, it's a catch-22, but that's a policy decision, and I sit here telling you legally what the consequences are. It's your decision whether you're going to vote for or against it. But if you amend it and say, we're going to pay all but $1,000 or all but $5,000, you could do that, but there's nothing in the contract that allows us to do that, and you know yourself that we can't unilaterally amend the contract. So you either vote to pay it or you vote not to pay it, and you tell them why not, and we let the chips fall where they may.
Mark?
I'd also like to add, this is a reputable contractor. I don't see any scenario where they would not come back and do warranty work. What we typically do at the end of the warranty, 1 year from now, we will do a warranty inspection. We go around, we look at the asphalt, we look at the concrete. If there's anything defective, they replace it. That's part of the warranty. I would also like to say these steps were replaced one time already. So the contractor put the steps in. The homeowner didn't like how the transition from the sidewalk went down into the driveway. So we ended up pulling the steps and a lot of sidewalk to match in and get it how she liked it. Her and her husband both saw the steps when they were done, when they were formed, and we put it back in how they liked it. I had not heard until today that they were unhappy with those steps. That was done last year. And this is the first I found out about that. But those steps were replaced once. The contractor had been out there several times. The last time they were out there we talked about all these individual issues, and if there are things that need to be straightened up, we can have the contractor back to do that. But they talked through each individual item with the husband as they were out there and confirmed with him when they left that everything was to their liking.
Ryan?
I just wanted to say, I think Eileen makes some really good points. If Steve Sorensen says that some of these things could still be fixed, and Mark is saying that some of these things could be fixed, I plan on voting for this, but I do want our residents to be happy with the work that's provided by our contractors.
And I'll be happy with any decision that you have tonight, but we can certainly go out and take a look at it tomorrow, and I can get a hold of the contractor. I will say that they're a reputable contractor, and if we ask them to come back in and fix these couple items, they'll do it.
Please call roll, Val.
Kelly? Barnett?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Anderson?
Aye.
Holt?
Aye.
Mikulowski?
Aye.
Daniel?
Nay.
Rossing?
Aye.
Ayes have it, the motion carries. Closed session, if necessary, to convene into closed session per Wisconsin State Statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, investing in public funds, or conducting other specific public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Discuss with legal counsel the negotiation status and possible action regarding the completion of negotiation with WPPA Local 38 on collective bargaining agreement. Discuss the status of negotiation of an employment contract with Zach Brewing.
I will make a motion to go into closed session for the above stated purpose.
Daniel second.
Roll. Val?
Barnett?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Anderson?
Aye.
Holt?
Aye.
Mikulowski?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Rossing?
Aye.
Kelly?
Ayes have it. We'll return in closed session in 2 minutes.
monsters are arming the primates. A baboon. That's scary enough, let alone a baboon with a chainsaw. Scary times at the safari park in England. So there you go. That is today's crazy, stupid news story.
Nothing but the legends. Classic country. Right here on Hodag Legends.
Hey, I just heard it was possible to get a customized auto quote from Liberty Mutual Insurance. 100% customized for what you need and not for what you don't. Have you ever asked, why should I pay for what I don't need? Like when I buy fancy mixed nuts, I don't want that big nut that takes up all the space. With Liberty Mutual, you can save money when you buy customized auto insurance. Pay only for what you need. This message was brought to you by Liberty Mutual Insurance. Visit libertymutual.com to learn more.
You have to be up in 5 hours, 2 hours, 6 minutes. And when you hear, you realize that you haven't slept a wink. That's why there's ZzzQuil Pure Z's, a drug-free blend of botanicals with an optimal dose of melatonin, so you can fall asleep naturally with no next-day grogginess. It's available in both liquid and gummies, tastes great, and is non-habit forming. Pick up ZzzQuil Pure Z's from the sleep experts at Vicks ZzzQuil. ZzzQuil Pure Z's, naturally superior sleep. Available at retailers near you.
Shotgun, I knew things weekend. It's JT filling in on this Monday. It's Glenn Campbell coming up. He's on the way in 3 minutes with Country Boy.
You don't know me, but I know who you are. Mind if I sit down? Do I look familiar? If I don't, well, I should.
267AF Rhinelander. Classic country on Hodag Legends.
You've got a thing or two to learn about me, baby. 'Cause I ain't taking it no more, and I don't mean maybe. You don't know right from wrong,
Simpson hit #1 in country with this. The Wild Side of Life, #1 in country on this day 68 years ago. That same day, Vera Lynn had this at #1 in the top 40. Rita Zane's Sweetheart was #1. A very different time, but there you go, from 1952. That is this day in music history.
The Legends, Hodag Legends, 1240 AM and 101.3 FM.
Have you ever wanted to learn a new language like French, Spanish, or Russian, but thought it would be too difficult and time-consuming? Then go to Babbel.com and try it for free. Babbel works because it's built around real life. It teaches you everyday practical conversations that you will actually use. In 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. Babbel uses a modern conversation-based technique that makes language engaging, fun, and memorable. It starts by teaching you words and phrases. Then, sentences gradually get more complex. Soon, you're practicing short conversations about real-life topics. Babbel is created by language experts who use the spaced repetition method to help you learn quickly and remember what you learned. With Babbel, you can speak a new language. Babbel. Language for life. Now try Babbel for free. Just go to Babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
Vehicle accidents are stressful enough. You don't need someone showing up at the scene trying to pressure you into letting them tow away your vehicle, often falsely claiming they were dispatched by the police or an insurance company. Be wary of any unsolicited tow truck that arrives on the scene of an accident. In fact, in some places, it's illegal. Motorists should not feel pressured to agree to a tow. Call your roadside assistance provider or insurance company for towing company suggestions, or consult with police on the scene. Always get the price and terms in writing along with the location of the tow yard before letting a tow truck driver hook up your vehicle and take it away. If you suspect fraud, call us at 1-800-TEL-NICB. That's 1-800-TEL-NICB, or visit our website, www.nicb.org. A public service message from the National Insurance Crime Bureau.
Olivia from Washington. Laid off and trying to keep our little kids from realizing that mommy and daddy haven't eaten in a while.
Roger from California. I'm grateful we could afford our son's surgery. I'm nervous that now we can't really afford food.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Keisha from South Carolina. I've been skipping meals so my 2 kids can eat, but filling up on water doesn't really work.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
When you need them, your local volunteer fire department routinely answers the call. Whether it be a fire, traffic accident, or a cat stuck in a tree, there is always someone there for you. However, because of declines in memberships, departments are becoming understaffed and struggling. Here's how you can help your neighbors and your community. No matter what skills you may possess, you can make a difference. Your local volunteer fire department desperately needs your help. Can you direct traffic, install a smoke alarm, help at fundraisers? Your community needs you. You don't have to fight fire to be a volunteer. Will you make that difference? Will you answer the call? Brought to you by the National Volunteer Firefighter Recruitment Center, a program service of the Volunteer Fire
a scattered shower on your Tuesday afternoon, but Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, upper 70s, close to 80 degrees. From News Channel 7's First Alert Weather Team, I'm Chief Meteorologist Mark Howell.
9. The classic sounds of country music. If you listen real close, you may learn all about life. 101.3 FM and 1240 AM. Hodag Legends.
All right, we'll return to open session. Item A on our closed session, there's nothing to report. Item B on the closed session, I'll accept the motion.
I would like it to make a motion to accept the resolution put forth approving the hiring of Zachary James Verwink as temporary assistant to the mayor in his capacity as acting city administrator until December 31st, 2020, as stated in this resolution.
Second.
Gerald was pretty quick. I'm going to give it to Gerald. Gerald Anderson
Gerald
got
wins.
the second.
Whatever.
That's fine. I concede.
It's basically just what's at the top of this.
Yeah, and you'll get that. Make it easy. This is item of cost, so I'm going to have Val call roll.
Larson,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Holt,
Aye.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Rossing, Kelly, Barnett.
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries. All right, future agenda items. Update on Parks Master Plans, Hodag Pioneer. This will be done pretty soon. I spoke to Jeremy about it prior. Review of the city's utility rates adjustment history in the terms of the rural development pertaining to the Stevens Street project established of the school district dome. And, what's that?
That's the next one.
Got doubled up.
I got you. Okay. Establish of the school district's dome as a polling place for November 3rd, 2020 election. C, oh, yeah.
That's what
Yeah, I got you. That's C. And D, consider bathroom replacement at Pioneer Park. These will be brought on the future agenda. Are there other requests?
I just want to make sure that we have the resolution. I thought we passed a couple of meetings back regarding Citizens
maps.
United and fair maps. I don't know, was it ever signed?
The resolution for fair maps?
For fair
They-
maps and Citizens United?
Yes, they were passed on May 11th, and I
Okay.
do have them signed, but I need to get them out.
Okay, thank
So I
you.
will be doing that.
So that has been passed, signed, and will be forwarded. I just wanted that on the record.
Yes.
Yes. Confused me when you asked, but that's good. Anything else for the future agenda items? Tom? Oh, he just wants to adjourn. All right, if there's no other requests, adjourn.
Hey, thanks for wearing masks.
Yeah.
I've been on the last couple of days about that too. You know, pointing out that was decided already. And the minutes from that meeting were pretty murky as to what was